All right, sports fans, this is all going to be combined into one. This is sort of almost a 60-day report. All of this was started on 3/27, so you figure it out. And before we get started, I want you guys to check out the description down below for a couple links for actually three people. One is CB's Greenhouse and Garden. If it wasn't for CB and Mike VanDuzee and even Hoocho, none of this would be possible. I've used the Dutch bucket method and everything on that come directly from CB, and I owe it all to him. As far as you'll see that in my nursery, I'm using Mike's downspouts. I even used all the downspouts in here on these NFT rails. And everything there is what I learned from Mike VanDuzee. You can see that I'm even using the pool noodles in my NFT rails. And Hoocho is sort of a crash dummy for all this. He experiments on all of this and gives you what works the best. Now this tray here is, or this tub, this is all DWC using these cement trays, and I had a few strawberry plants here, and I'm playing around with trying to get these runners to root and that. Here on the end, I keep this one, it's just a straight cracky, and I take cuttings and that suckers off of different tomato plants and everything else, and I just throw them in here to see if they're going to do anything. Well, looks like I got a lettuce that broke off there. Go ahead and take that in the house and we'll have that for dinner tomorrow. And you can see here that I've got to thin this stuff out. Now these first three rails here, this is pretty much ideal, where I've got Swiss chard. At the other end there, I've got beet tops. I've got cilantro in there, and I've also got some basil up front here. I've got pak choi here, and back there I've got some Tropicana lettuce. And this next rail, I started some more pak choi in there. This lettuce here, I'm trying to just thin this all out so I can get it under control. And I only want to use every other rail on this lettuce and just about every other hole to get that thinned out. Here I've got my these Oregon giant snow peas. They aren't doing much. They're growing all right. You can see that I've got some pods just starting. These are Isaac cucumbers. They're self-pollinating, and you can see that some of these down in here, they're a couple inches long now, and this thing is really going good. And again, all of these plants were planted on 3/27. Same with all of this tomatoes. These are I've got Sweet 100 here, Big Beef, Sweet 100, Big Beef. Now this one is about 3 weeks behind the others. This was one that I just started 3 weeks later, and you can see that this stuff is all flowering. It's going big. I've got a lot of tomatoes in here in different areas and that, and they're just really getting to rock and roll. So you can see them in there. I'm waiting to see how these do. You can see here on this Big Beef, they're doing good. You can see there on the Sweet 100s, they're doing good. And these three on the end are something called greenhouse tomatoes. And I don't know what to expect out of them, but we'll see when they get done. Now, I am using grow lights in here. These are 750 watt Mars Hydro grow lights, and the rest is done with shop lights. They're 6500K with 2500 lume. And they pretty much supply all the light for in here except over these areas here. Okay, that's going to do it. And we'll move to the indoor nursery setup, and I'll show you what we got going in there. Okay, I wanted to show you what's going on here in our nursery. These are all plants, the weather, these were all started for outside. You can see that the tomato plants have just gone crazy in here. And also, we've got some cabbage here. This is all to go out in the garden. Hopefully we can get it all out there in the next couple of days, because it's getting way out of control, and I hope we haven't waited too long. And up above here in one of Mike's downspouts, his design, I've got 3 basil plants, and over there on the end of it is 3 clumps of cilantro. Now down here I've got some sunflowers here that are going to be going out in the garden. This one here is all different types of Roma tomatoes, big beefs, sweet 100s. There's like 6 different tomatoes in there. And then here I've got these 2 rows right here are black crim on tomatoes. And the tomatoes here and here we'll be holding off on them going outside. But all of these squash and beans that we got there, they're going to be going out in the next couple of days. And down below here, we've got a whole bunch of other miscellaneous stuff that will be split up between the NFT rails and the garden outside. Back here in the corner, this is just something I've been playing with, but you can see the radishes growing in here. These are some starts on some Tropicana and Adriana lettuce and that'll be going in the NFT rails. All of the stuff I start in the Oasis cubes goes into the NFT rails. This stuff here is all started in a mix of perlite and vermiculite. And it makes it real easy to transplant because the vermiculite and perlite, just dip it in a bucket of water and it all comes right off the roots. And you can do anything you want with it. We can take those plants and put them in Dutch buckets. We can put them in NFT rails. If I go straight from the plant like that with the roots bare into the NFT, then I go ahead and use a pool noodle as a collar for them. And that works just as well. Down below you can see there's a bunch of pak choi, a couple tomato plants there on the end, Swiss chard in there. I mean, this stuff is just going crazy. But our weather has been so bad here that it went from super hot to super raining now for the last 3 days. So hopefully I can get out there tomorrow and get this in. Let me go out there and show you what I've got going in the garden area. I've got some raised beds here. Now, these 2 plants here on the end are blueberries that I got a couple of them from the grocery store there in town. This one here, this bed, I didn't know any of this was in here, but the wife had asparagus planted in here, and it just keeps popping up. You can see how here all of this is raised. If I take and cut that back a little, you can see that there's all kinds of starts coming up, and this stuff is growing like crazy. It's nothing for this stuff to grow a foot a day. Look at this. those things yesterday were only about this high, and they just went crazy. And some of it's going to seed. And then here was a friend of mine give me a bunch of his strawberries that he had going, and they were wintered in that, and I took and cleaned the roots up and sort of weeded them out a little and thinned them and put them in here about a month ago, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And I've already got strawberries growing on these things, and they're doing real good. He had 3 beds of these, and they wanted to thin them out. And then here on the end, this is we had a big rhubarb root, and we took and it was about the size of a basketball, and we took and cut that in half and put it back in the dirt here. So we got our rhubarb going again. My wife makes a lot of jam or jelly and that. I haven't hooked up these 2 drip lines yet, but this one here is hooked up and going. And this corn here that you see, all of it right here, this was those transplants that I took out of the nursery and put in here. And then I'd run out of seeds. Now in the middle here, between these 2 rows of, or in the center there, those are beans that we planted, just a single bean in each one of them. And they're coming up good. And then I planted in corn also, just from the seed itself, direct sowed it in here. And they just started coming up a couple days ago. So that looks like that's pretty promising too. And we're using this landscape fabric, and the water can go through it. So we've used our drip lines on top of it, and that way you can see anytime there's a problem or anything like that. Okay, I'm gonna just stop this right here, and on the tail end of this you'll have a time lapse of the way that nursery was growing.